before you get married, know how to protect your premarital assets. So this is a little out of context for what I usually cover, but it is divorce related. And so I want to make sure that for anybody out there who's planning on getting married, that you have the information you need to protect yourself if in the event that you ever get a divorce. There are two types of states when it comes to divorce in the United States. So there are, let's see, community property states, and then there are equitable distribution states. So what community property states are is that when you go file for a divorce, basically everything of your marital assets are split 50-50, regardless of what your financial situation is. In equitable distribution states, they take a look at the finances during the marriage, and they will split things up equitably depending upon who made more money, who has the potential to make more money in the future. Anyone who has the potential to make more money in the future would get less in the divorce settlement because they have a potential of making greater amount of money in the future, whereas the other spouse may not. So they would get more of the marital assets to kind of them whole. So just as an example, when my ex-husband and I got divorced, our incomes were pretty much the same. So the equitable distribution was basically split 50-50, although I did retain my 401k and pension, and he retained his 401k and pension. But as far as all the rest of the marital assets, we split them 50-50. In my current husband's situation, his ex-wife made about 3 times more than he did. He was also the primary caregiver for their son and basically a stay-at-home dad. He did work a part-time job, a couple of more shifts during the week, but for the majority of the time, he was just a stay-at-home dad. So when it came to the equitable distribution of their marital estate, so to speak, he ended up getting 65% of their marital assets because he did make less money than she did. And in the future, she had the potential for making a lot more money than him. So therefore, he ended up with a greater portion of the marital assets during the divorce. So as far as premarital assets go, what type of state you live in, we'll generally regard premarital assets as being the property of the person who had them prior to the marriage. But there are instances when that can kind of a little bit of a gray area. So if during the marriage you used marital assets to maybe upgrade a property that, say, the husband owned prior to the marriage, well, the fact that you used marital assets or marital money to upgrade that property, that means that your spouse is at least into whatever profits were made as a result of the improvements that were made to the property. So you're going to want to make sure that if you own property prior to being married and you are planning on retaining that as yours alone, as far as premarital assets go, then you're going to want to make sure that you do not use any marital assets to make the property or pay the taxes or pay the mortgage or anything like that. You want to make sure that you strictly use your funds to pay those types of improvements. Don't mix it with the marital assets. Now, on the flip side of that, say you had some investments before you got married, and those investments are going to remain yours in the event you guys would get a divorce. You're going to want to make sure that you don't use any of that money to, say, pay off the mortgage on the marital home or make improvements to the marital home, because then that money is not something that you can be reimbursed for when it comes to the divorce settlement agreement. So you basically used your personal money to help make improvements to the marital home. So now that becomes part of the marital assets and the marital property. So you would not be able to see a return on that investment as far as you being reimbursed personally for it during the divorce settlement agreement. So definitely want to make sure, again, that you're only using marital assets to make improvements or to pay the mortgage and things of that nature on the marital property. If you're really concerned about whether your premarital assets are going to be marital assets as part of a divorce, you're definitely going to want to possibly discuss that with a divorce attorney before you get married and find out if maybe a prenuptial agreement is something would be more beneficial to, especially if you make a large amount of the income in the house and if you have a large amount of premarital assets. So I hope you found this information interesting. Please check out my other videos. Thanks.